Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, episode 205.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers and enthusiasts who are looking to take their games to new heights. Dedicated to custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee with the Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicated to sharing useful information on professional club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice techniques. Changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time. One of my favorite interviews was the one I did in December 2021 with Dr. Rob Gray, a motor learning and skill creation expert, my words, at Arizona State University. And we discussed his great book, How We Learn to Move. When I learned that he had just published a new book, Learning to Optimize Movement, I had to bring him back on the podcast, and he graciously agreed. You will hear some new, interesting, and hopefully valuable ideas in this interview with Dr. Rob Gray.
Tony Wright and Game Improvement Golf, changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time.
Hello, this is Tony Wright with episode 205 of the Golf Improvement Podcast, and I'm delighted to welcome back Dr. Rob Gray, an expert in perceptual motor skills, creator of the really interesting Perception and Action podcast, and writer of his first and actually best-selling book, I believe, How We Learn to Move, which is something that really, changed the environment of people understanding how to create skills. Well, I'll bet you were starting to write this second book while you were doing the first one. I don't know. And maybe we'll talk about that. Learning to Optimize Movement, Harnessing the Power of the Athlete-Environment Relationship. So, Rob, thanks for being on the show with me. Appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, Tony.
Yeah. Well, what motivated you to write a new book so soon after How We Learn to Move?
Yeah, I didn't intend to the day after. It was a while. Yeah,
really. Okay.
No, it was quite a while after where I, a lot of people ask you that, when you're going to write another one, and you say maybe. It was most of it. I got such a great reaction from people from the first book. People saying that it kind of inspired them to think differently and explore different things, which is, and they found it a great way to get into this area, which can be kind of hard with all the terminology and things. So it was really, kind of motivating, like put gas in my tank in terms of my creator. And a lot of questions I got about it was, okay, how do I use a lot of these ideas with more skilled athletes that are already skillful? How can I kind of apply this? So that was kind of my thought. So if the first book's kind of learning about kind of basic coordination, kind of just basic ideas like that, how can I take it a step further and even move towards being an elite performer?
Yeah. Well, it's neat. I mean, it definitely is a step. And it's a little deeper dive than the first one, but I really enjoyed reading it. The title has the word environment in it, and so much as I'm helping people with golf and the putting coaching thing that I do, and even personally, the environment teaching you is just becoming more and more important to me. Okay, and it's a big theme in your new book, and you say the environment is your partner. I think we could talk for hours about this, but just share a bit of your thinking on this concept.
Yeah, the basic idea and main idea I tried to put through the book is that skill is a relationship. It's a relationship between you and your environment. Your environment has all this information, all these opportunities it's offering you if you just want to connect with it and be open to and attentive to these opportunities. It's a very different view of skill then we have that tends to be the being skillful is pulling out of the environment, right? So we develop all these things in our head and all our brain, and the essential idea of automaticity, right, is really not connecting with the environment. It's right being robotic, right? So you just run off this swing or whatever sport you're talking about without really connecting to how it's unfolding in the moment in the environment or different sensory experiences and things like that. So I really try to push this idea that if we're just willing to and open to our environment, it gives us so much that we can use to be skillful.
And one of the big areas that I just see it, the ground becomes your environment in golf, right? I mean, it teaches you what you're doing. It teaches you about your contact. It, particularly short game kind of things. It teaches you whether what you're doing works, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
and so much, and so many sports, golf's another example where we disconnect from our environment so much. Like we spend so much time practicing swinging and not playing golf. Right?
Yeah.
Like you could, you when you're on a driving range, you could be on a road. Like there's no purpose to your shots, right? You're just, other than swinging, there's no real connection with the environment because the environment is not, you're not trying to achieve anything really other than just hit a ball straight forward. I think that's a great way to put it.
Actually, I think this next question is something we talked about the last time, but boy, it's just worth talking about again. And you said in the new book, being skillful is not a process of repeating a solution. It's repeating the process of finding a solution. And later on, I don't think you said this part in the first book. You said block practice is not the devil. Constant practice is. Talk about the connection between those two ideas.
Yeah, so the first one, is all about adaptability, right? That's a line from an idea of Nikolai Bernstein that every movement is different, right? Every golf shot is slightly different. The environment's different. The angle, distance, wind, whatever. You're different. Your fatigue level, your tightness in your body, your feel is different. So every single time you're not repeating a swing, you're repeating the process of finding a swing that will work under these particular situations and constraints, right? So it's really about adaptability. And that later in the book, we have this idea. Most people know, a lot of people know motor learning, this kind of blocked practice versus random practice is a very classic finding in research. And technically, blocked practice is working on the same skill over and over again. So working on driving over and over and over again. That to me is not problematic. I don't think you have to switch between driving and chipping and putting, and that can be helpful. But the real problem I have is when you work on driving in the same way over and over again. So you're hitting the same direction, the same balls teed the same way, the same exact club, the same exact stance, right? That's what we mean by constant practice. So we're not varying anything. So I have no problem with someone going out to a driving range and doing a whole bunch of shots. What I would like to see them do is vary things, right? Vary where you're hitting it, the shape of it, change the where in the stance you're hitting it, front, back, tee it up at different heights, all these kind of things. So that's what I mean. Like, I think constant practice, doing the same skill in the same way over and over is more problematic than just focusing on one particular skill.
And it also helps you learn something more rather than thinking that you're totally, I think the thought behind that is that every shot is exactly perfect and I'm repeating it, and we know you don't. Yeah, for sure. And I think there's so much to be learned. There's this kind of idea that I think, the idea of perfect practice makes perfect. Is wrong, right? I think this idea, actually being imperfect is very informative, right? Trying to deliberately hit a ball all the way to the right and then all the way to the left and practicing golf is useful, right? It teaches you what your body needs to do to make a ball go that direction, right? And then in turn, it kind of helps you hit it straight. So, so I think that's kind of where I was going with that. I don't know if you've ever seen what I call sort of the classic Rory. I don't know. You probably know Rory McIlroy. he's able to hit a shot where he hits the absolute top of the ball, intentionally. I mean, it just shows how skillful he is to be able to do things like that.
Yeah, and I work on, I've seen people in basketball deliberately hit the back of the rim or the crossbar in soccer, and I think you think we're supposed to focus on doing it the right way, quote unquote, all the time, but doing it the wrong way can help you learn a lot too.
Yeah. Now, there were a couple, and I don't think these terms were in the first book, and if they were, I missed them, but you had a couple I call sort of new terms in the new book, affordances and invitations, and their importance in creating skills. And I know you've done a lot of stuff with baseball, but I know that it relates to golf and things too. Share what these are and a little about their importance in skill creation and performance.
Yeah, I think I've touched very briefly on the first book, but I definitely, that part of this one, I wanted to go into this. And yeah, that's an idea from James Gibson, is the idea that we don't perceive like just the physical properties of the world. Right? I don't perceive that hole is 90 yards away. Well, someone forces me to. 90 yards away, its direction is 25 degrees from where I am now. Right? What Gibson argued is what we actually perceive as opportunities for action. So I perceive that this affords laying up. This affords going for the pin. This affords staying on the left, a high side, right? So I perceive what I'm perceiving as opportunities for action that are available to me in my environment. And, these depend on my abilities. Obviously, if I'm a novice golfer going for the pin might not be possible. I might need to. So that's the idea of here, that your environment is inviting you to act, it's giving you lots of different options for what you can do. And kind of, we need to learn to tune into those and kind of, that's, I think, what we mean when we say playing within yourself, right? You get calibrated to which of those opportunities you can do, which you can accept and things like that.
And I don't remember that you said those words in the book, but they just like rang to me. Okay. So to me, an opportunity for action is different, maybe depending on your skill level, but at least for golfers, may be related to the inherent randomness of some of the ways golfers perform. I mean, even the best golfers might have a dispersion on a 150-yard shot that's like 20, 30 yards, 15 yards, right? And so connecting those two together is what can help people, score, right?
Yeah, for sure. Knowing kind of what you're capable of and where, even a skilled golfer, I can, this is how far I can kind of get it within the close to the pin and things like that, for sure.
Yeah. Now, another thing I thought was really neat in the book, and I'll put that in the context that where I'm thinking about it is, you were talking about learning from teammates. And I'm trying to work with a lot of the golfers I help to understand how to read greens better. Okay. And I would say that the way I've done that in the past has been, okay, you learn how to read greens better individually, right? And after I read what you wrote about that, I thought, why don't I have them get into groups of 2 or 3 or 4 and go out on the course and read greens, read the slopes, read how much a putt breaks, and talk to each other about how they individually do it and see if they can learn from each other. Right?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. I think, demonstration and observation of someone else doing an action is one of the, most powerful ways we learn. Especially when it's not like used in a way where we're given a whole bunch of verbal, talk, watch me while I bend my knee and keep my head down, and like we traditionally do in golf coaching, where we let people kind of observe someone performing something, like green reading, and we kind of take from information from what they're doing, and then kind of reflecting on it afterwards. I think in a group that it can be very powerful, for sure.
Now, do you do that sometimes with some of your baseball people a little bit too? And I've talk about this sort of team element with that and how you apply that.
Yeah, for sure. I sometimes it's not even like I want to. I kind of have to. You often but you have groups of batters, for example. I have to work with at the same time. As much as we want to individualize skill development, sometimes you can't, right? You can't just kick everyone, leave everyone standing to the side and do one at a time. So, yeah, I like to work in groups and get them kind of observing. I really like to use groups for kind of getting some competition, some kind of a little bit of pressure in practice, which I think, there's lots of research showing the benefits of kind of turning up the heat on practice a little bit, where there's some kind of stakes and you kind of other people observing you, kind of something you're going to have to get used to if you're going to compete. So yeah, I think there's lots of different things, nice things you can do with working in a group.
And I like different ways. I keep trying to find more and more ways where there's a measure of what you do, and then there's the pressure of something about trying to reach a measure. It becomes to me so much more valuable than just saying, just hit this putt, right? Mm-hmm. Or just make the swing and things like that.
Yeah, they get into it. Yeah, having some consequence, right?
Yeah.
To what you do. We take that out of so much of practice, right? You don't want to have, it's super demanding all the time and wear someone out, but having that, I think is important. I think, it kind of challenges you more and also prepares you for kind of situations in competition where you're going to get that kind of pressure.
Yeah. Now, you also talked about the benefits in the book of what you call learning slow. And I've been talking to some other people with other situations about that. It just kind of came around almost at the same time. Is learning slow just doing things slowly, or is there more to it? Or is it just not having to learn it immediately and, allowing to have time to sink in, or all of the above?
I think more of what I was trying to get across, and there was kind of deciding slow. So learning to move and act so you keep lots of options open, right? In the way you act. So the example I give is in, a basketball or hockey when you have a 2-on-1, right? Really skillful athletes don't make quick decisions, right? They don't decide to shoot right away or pass right away or drive to the goal right away. They wait until the defender decides for them, right? They adjust the distances and keep it as long as possible before they have to decide what to do. So that's what I mean kind of about being acting slow, deciding slow. We want to keep our options open. We mentioned these affordances, all these opportunities we have. If we kind of focus on quick decisions, we're going to miss some opportunities. Yeah.
Did you ever hear of I think the book title was Be Quick, But Don't Hurry?
Yes.
Oh, gosh, it was a great book.
Yeah. I think same kind of ideas. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And I could see it too I don't know how much of the World Cup soccer you watched, but man,
yeah,
it was some of the most fabulous stuff, and the goalies responding in the, in a penalty kick area. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they were doing this kind of thing and not just making an immediate decision on some of the cases.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. And kind of in a lot of soccer is controlling things until an opening comes, right? Right.
Yeah.
It's so much of keeping the ball and probing and trying to get the defense to break down instead of you having to try to create the opportunity. Yeah.
And in golf, it can also be when you're behind a tree, taking enough time to breathe, so you make a good decision, I think. And
I think options for golfers, I think, is something you can get through practice, right? I think I was, one of the kind of real memories I have is I watched on TV one time, they had a skills competition in golfing, and it was 3 kind of current players at the time and Chichi Rodriguez.
Oh my, yeah.
And all the other 3 players, every obstacle they put behind a tree, they all did the same thing because they'd learned kind of one solution for getting around a tree. Chichi Rodriguez had all these. He could slice it, hook it, hit it high, hit it low. He had like 20 shots in his bag to get out of that situation. So kind of that's what I mean, like creating these options and opportunities for that time when your one classic solution maybe is not going to work that well.
And maybe if you take your time, you'll have one of those solutions that you're most comfortable with.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you laughed about this other question, but when I read your chapter about pain and injury, I just so much personally reflected on it, because I know I'm going to get a knee replacement in a few weeks. But the biggest part of that section of the book was finding new ways to move after an injury or a surgery, rather than thinking that you're going to do the same thing you did before. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really eye-opening. I never really heard anybody talk about that before. It just made sense,
Yeah, I think it's kind of applying these ideas outside of sports to physical therapy and rehab is starting to gain some momentum. Yeah, the idea, injury, fundamentally and lawfully permanently changed your body. That's the bad news. The good news is just something else you have to adapt to, right? That you've been doing all your life. Like that's, so yeah, the idea, we want to, often in physical therapy, you come back from ACL surgery and they get you to do this kind of classic movement. It's painful. You struggle because you can't do it very well. And it just kind of reinforces where you're not, rather than kind of giving more kind of functional movements and letting you explore kind of what can I still do. And while doing that, you're probably going to strengthen things and create more things that you can do. So yeah, I think moving away from this idea of going back, to going forward, what can I do with the way I am now?
And there must be options in going forward that are maybe better, and certainly probably better than what you were trying to do, that, you'd be limiting yourself.
Yes.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the book, I mean, it all wrapped up for me a little bit. And I just love to talk about, I think you talked a lot at the end of the book about how doing your podcast has made such a difference for you, right? Because it put you in an environment to get connected with a lot of people and create a lot of different ideas or find a lot of ideas and stuff. And I just felt that way a little bit about me. And I don't mean it in a, in like a cocky manner, but finding ways to put yourself in an environment where you can learn and be exposed to so many different things is fun, right? But it's also such a great way to get better at many different things, right?
For sure. Yeah. I think, kind of trying to apply these things and, talk about them with other people that's where you really get understanding and deep knowledge. I think, I think we understand a lot of things. Me too. And then we go try to do it and we're like, oh, okay, I didn't really get that. Right. So yeah, I think putting yourself in the environment where, you can kind of share with people. I really see that's a really nice thing I see a lot of in coaching and sports now. People are making long posts and blog posts and sharing on podcasts and all these things about their methods and approaches rather than trying to protect it like it's some IP, intellectual property. Like I think sharing is really helps you grow and benefits everybody.
Well, any final things you want to say related to the book, that I just sort of didn't cover, but that you think are really relevant? And then if you want to talk about, is there another book coming? But maybe not, right?
No, I think that we hit on the main points. I think as much as possible, I tried to write it as kind of a standalone, but it definitely builds on on how we learn to move. So, if kind of like those concepts and you want to dig deeper, I think hopefully you would enjoy it. And yeah, there's probably another book in the works. I'm not going to lie. I have some ideas, but not going to start anything for a while for sure.
Well, you could write a book related to the yips. How about that? I mean, that's still such a wide open area, I think, that I know. And I know there's the person I'm going to interview next has been in the Netherlands doing some yips research. Right. And,
okay.
And it'll be fun to learn about what he's doing, but we just don't got that yet, and it's like so many other things that you wish you did, but boy, wouldn't it be fun if somebody could get the total handle on that, right?
Yeah, and definitely. I mean, baseball would get it as well too.
Yeah, baseball and gymnastics and
Simone Biles last year, and it's a very powerful thing. I mean, so much so that most people don't even like to talk about it. Like it's some curse you do. You don't say its name, so you don't get it.
Yeah.
So I think it is a really important thing. I would love to learn more about and investigate. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being on again and talking about the new book. I look forward to the next one. Gosh, I'd love to get to talk with you about that one when it comes out.
My pleasure, Tony. Yeah. I will. Hopefully, down the road we can do that for sure.
There you go. I'm putting links in the show notes to your new book and also where you can subscribe to the Perception and Action podcast. Not everybody will subscribe to it and listen to it, right? But for the people that it connects with, wow, it's great. So,
yep. Definitely, it's especially the newer episodes where it's pretty deep dive into things. So you might want to start on the earlier ones, but I think hopefully if this kind of skill acquisition things are interest you, definitely check it out.
Yeah.
The Golf Improvement Podcast is sponsored by Tony Wright and Game Improvement Golf. Tony creates exceptional golf clubs. You shoot lower scores.
Many thanks, Rob, for this interview. At least for me, the whole concept of learning how your environment can help teach you ways to improve your skills has been a major eye-opener. And Rob's thoughts about how to more effectively recover from injuries also resonated with me. I put links in the show notes to where you can buy Rob's new book and also to where, if you wish, you can sign up to listen to episodes of his Perception and Action podcast. If you're deep into wanting to learn how to improve your golf and other skills, this is a must listen. My shout out today is for a new putting coaching device that I purchased, the Capto EZ. It's designed more as a tool for a player to personally use to help improve his putting stroke. But I see it as a valuable new tool I can use to help coach golfers to make more putts. I put a link in the show notes to where you can learn more about the Capto EZ. I'm delighted I was able to record this episode a few days before my knee surgery, which will make it easier for me to share it with you and make it live on February 10th. Remember that there's a Support the Golf Improvement Podcast link in the show notes for this podcast, and your support for a much-needed upgrade to my 2012 iMac podcasting computer would be greatly appreciated. Well, that's it for today. Eric van Wessen, a neurologist from the Netherlands who started doing some very interesting PhD research on the yips, will be with me, and he'll share some of his initial yips insights in episode 206. Until then, take care, God bless Ukraine, and God bless America.
Game Improvement Golf, your source of information and inspiration to become an exceptional golfer now. www.gameimprovementgolf.com